Good evening. The show is the smoking section, and I'm very happy tonight to have former mayor and city councilor Ken Reeves on tonight. Ken, thank you for making the time for this humble little production here.
Mr. Helfer, if you ask me, I'd come.
Thank you. Thank you. Ken, you are now working for the Massachusetts Institute of Technology. Is that correct?
Yes, I'm a newly minted Dr. Martin Luther King visiting scholar and professor in the School of Urban Studies and Planning.
Really? So is that going to be doing a lot of, what, traffic, parks? Well, does it have anything to do with the schools, education?
The 3 areas that I'm designing to do my work in, one will be the history of the city of Detroit from 1950 to present. As you may or may not know, I'm originally from Detroit.
I do know that, yes.
I'm trying to do a 3-day symposium about the many phases of Detroit between 1950 and today and its future. And also, I hope to organize a real estate working group that is going to ponder the question, I want to live in Cambridge, but I'm not a millionaire.
Oh, so, really? Yeah.
So how can we put together some new thinking to figure out housing for people who don't have a lot of money?
Right. Of course, that's going on all over the country in every urban area that is prospering, like New York, San Francisco.
In New York, Mayor de Blasio is doing some very good work on trying to get 50% of new housing to be affordable to some spectrum of people, and I think we ought to be deeply involved in that discussion. And in fact, we have entered that arena, and I'm hopeful with some of the great minds at MIT and their real estate. They have at the Sloan School a real estate program, and also within the School of Architecture and Public Urban Planning, there's also a committee on real estate too. So I'm hoping to do some work in that area, and maybe some collaborations with some groups in Baltimore and also in Queens, New York, where some of the ideas of how to do real estate, not just for profit, but for people who live there,
right,
is the scope and objective.
You know, I just heard my sister and brother-in-law live in Baltimore, and my niece is a classmate of Stephanie Rawlings, I think is her name, Rawlings?
Yes. I think she's called a state's attorney.
No, we're talking about a different person. I'm talking about the mayor.
Oh, the mayor. No, she has 2 names. Rawlings is one.
Oh, Rawlings something?
Yes,
maybe.
hyphenated. Yes,
yeah,
yes.
Right. And, you know, so we're kind of connected with Baltimore, and I just read last night, I mean, I don't know if you read the paper
today. Rawlings Blake, I think.
It could be.
Something like that.
But she my niece went to high school together, and so that tells you how old my niece is, and by extrapolation how old I am.
The mayor is a very lovely woman of no certain age. I couldn't tell
Oh, right. Well, yeah, she's, yeah, right. And
she could be 20-something, 30-something, or 40-something.
But just in the newspaper today, I mean, evidently, Baltimore had a very bad night last night, or the night before.
It's had a bad week. The week had, I think, 8 or 9 deaths and 20-odd shootings, like 25.
Right, not related to the slaying of, or the death of Mr. Gray, of course.
Well,
or maybe, I don't know.
It's certainly in the wake of, but it's a real spike, and there was a real discussion back and forth about whether or not there's like less policing going on.
Oh, since his death?
Yes.
Oh, jeez.
Or less policing being a cause of the so many shootings, because people are kind of feeling that the police have stepped back, and hence they could do more things that they want to do that they shouldn't do if they thought the police were going to.
So it's kind of been
address them.
Yeah, and of course Stephanie got a bit of she put her foot in her mouth.
Well, I guess that's a fair assessment.
Well, the only reason I say that, Ken, is because I was talking to my sister, and evidently my sister was watching her and thought that her utterances were really not very good. She did not do a good job, unfortunately. I mean, you know, it's hard.
I'm going to compare her. So in Houston, there is a lesbian mayor whose name is Annalise Parker.
Yes. A mayor of Houston.
Yes, and she was on television for the last couple days about their big rain and how it's impacting
The rain,
her city.
they're flooding?
And her manner was so kind of was specific but encouraging and warm. I don't think that the Baltimore mayor was able to bring those qualities to her television
Right,
appearances.
and
I
using the
felt
word
badly
thug
for
was
her
bad.
for-
Using the word thug was bad.
Well,
I mean, I don't know.
It didn't serve her well.
No, the thing-
And I don't know. I know she wanted to say, and I'm from Detroit, a city that had riots.
A mess,
Yes,
basically. It's been a mess
and it was
for a while.
those riots in 1967
Mm-hmm.
that caused the real downfall of that city. So
Oh, really?
I'm very concerned about Baltimore.
Oh, geez, really?
Because if Baltimore is going to have the perception that is not governable, and
Yes.
and in Detroit, what really happened in '67 when we had the riots, all of the white people left the city, and I don't mean some.
Really?
Okay, and I'm afraid for Baltimore in that sense. Because if that happens to Baltimore, the city will never prosper, and
Right,
Detroit has
right.
never prospered.
Right, since then.
Yes, so certain kind of civil disobedience can end your city for you.
Oh, right,
And so
right.
I'm just hopeful that in Baltimore there won't be that.
I don't think there can be because, first of all the whites who wanted to leave Baltimore have already left. And so you do have whites that have moved back in who have money and who live in enclaves that are, kind of, they're there for the duration, I think.
Well, in this year I've had off from city government. I've done some consulting for a client that is in Baltimore, so I've had to make a couple trips there to take
Yes.
a look at some projects there. And also the city of Baltimore was kind of looking to see if they want to have something like a Cambridge Innovation Center. So I've been
Right.
able to meet with some of that city's officials here, in fact. And Baltimore is at a very interesting juncture because the Baltimore that I saw really, first thing most people don't know, you can take a commuter train from Baltimore to Washington, D.C. for $7 and be there in
Really?
under 40 minutes.
Yes, you
and
can get
and
to
I don't think people knew that. I didn't know that.
That it was that close to
No,
D.C.
it's-
and that accessible?
And D.C. has become very, very expensive.
Oh, geez,
and,
right.
And Baltimore could really be a bedroom community for D.C. in a way that I didn't know previously.
Right.
And one of the people that I went to see in Baltimore is a developer who happens to be Haitian, who took me on a tour of a number of his projects downtown. And he's really got big things going in downtown Baltimore. So,
Yeah.
and I was with him since the shooting there, and I was really trying to glean from him, is it possible that this is going to be the worst possible thing for some of the bright and positive things that he and I were able to discuss when I was there? So I think the jury's out.
Yes, yes.
Also, though, the prior mayor in Baltimore was also an African-American woman.
Right.
And I
Oh, really? You sure?
Yes,
Yes.
I'm
Is that
sure.
right? Yes, I'm
sure.
sorry.
Just like your sister is a good friend of hers, I have a good friend who's
My
a good
niece,
friend
my
of
niece.
your
Yes.
niece.
No, I'm just trying to.
And that prior mayor, I understand, is likely to run again.
Oh my
too.
gosh!
So,
to try
yes,
to. Oh my God!
yeah,
Try
so-
to unseat
so-
Stephanie.
So definitely,
My niece is not gonna
Stephanie.
be
but,
happy
but
about that.
That discussion was going on before the
Yeah,
recent
right.
unrest.
Well, politics. I tend to give politicians the benefit of the doubt. I think Stephanie.
I'm glad of that.
Well, I mean, I think she was caught in a tough situation.
Well, she really has. That's why I used the mayor of Houston as an example. I mean, and maybe I don't want to assess my own mayoral strengths and weaknesses.
Yes.
But the mayor really has to stand up and comfort the people and represent the place in times of particularly national attention.
Oh, right, certainly.
Okay, and either you do that well or you pay the price.
You pay the price, and she's paying the price, and we'll see. But like some people are unhappy because she made her appearance with perfectly coiffed hair and the like, and my guess is her advisor said, no matter what you do, Stephanie, get there and appear as if you're as cool as a cucumber, and and then it didn't work out well in terms of public relations. It would have looked better if she had appeared in a baseball hat. But I mean, the point is, if she had appeared in a baseball hat, people would have said, well, oh my God, you really didn't represent the city very well. So I think sometimes people are between a rock and a hard place, if that's a correct metaphor in this case.
Well, since this is a quarter in which I do not have a nickel, I think I will let it rest with your analysis.
A quarter, I don't even get that.
I don't have a nickel in this quarter.
Well, you're a supporter of Stephanie. Are you not so?
I'm a supporter of the city of Baltimore.
Really? Yes.
And their
indeed,
elected
as am I.
officials, whoever
Well,
they may have elected.
Now I am going to go to a native son of Baltimore.
Who?
Well, you're going to see. He's going to be on the screen in just a second.
Oh, good.
This is what we call the smoker of the week.
Oh, you have it's Eubie Blake.
Eubie Blake.
Yes.
And did you know that he is a native son of Baltimore?
I did not.
You did not?
The only native son I know is Edgar Allan Poe.
And also, what's that guy's name? Oh, I can't remember.
And also, what's her name? I just saw her today. A famous writer from the Harlem Renaissance, from the 20s, Gertrude Stein.
Oh, really? But I mean, who is the guy who had that magazine, the Mercury? He was white. He was very acerbic and kind of a curmudgeon.
Ooh.
Oh,
White acerbic curmudgeons are
yes,
not a big category of mine.
Well, no, but anyway.
This.
Okay, now this is Eubie Blake.
Unless they live in Cambridge, then I would probably know.
Yes, you would not be unable to know them. That he was a literary man. He was a newspaper man. He had a magazine called the Mercury. My friend Paul Neff is a great fan of his. Oh well, it's okay. Here we go, Eubie Blake. And he's our smoker of the week, one of the famed jazz musicians probably of all time in the United States. And he was an inveterate smoker. He started at the age of 6. And he was still smoking a couple of packs a day at the age of 96. And he died at the age of 100. And it's just a shame if we think, if he hadn't have smoked, how long he would have lived. You know what I'm saying? So it's a kind of a shame, right?
Well, it's your show, so I'm going to let you argue your arguments. Now,
yes.
As you know, I'm a former smoker.
Right.
I do not smoke. I don't think smoking is good for you.
Right.
But
right.
You certainly have provided a profile. And, African American men have the shortest lifespan of any group in our society.
Right.
So you have found one who lived to be 100 who smoked. Inveterate.
From the age of 6.
From the age of 6.
Right.
So I would say he wouldn't be the norm, because the average life expectancy for African American men in America is in the early 70s now.
But, it has gone up a lot in the last 20 years for African American men. It's gone up somewhat.
It's gone up from 68 to something not quite 75.
Right. It's not as high as white American men, but then again, it has gone up.
White women are the highest.
Right, but it's gone up high. In the last 20 years, it's gone up. The life expectancy of people in the United States has gone up across the board.
Well, but African American men, who I've been following for the last 25 years,
are still lagging.
Still the group that's the odd guys out for a number of factors. One is that we have a tremendous death rate of African American men before they are 35.
From violence?
From a range of things. Violence is one, suicide is another, age is another.
Right.
But all of those combine to make it skews the life expectancy number. So for African American men, the real question is, if you're African American and a man and you live to be age 50,
right,
what then is your life expectancy?
Oh, I see. Yeah.
Then you would have a better idea of what more normative.
Well, I mean, one of the problems that that we in Cambridge Citizens for Smokers' Rights address is the connection between poverty, mental disabilities, and smoking. Now, for example, people with schizophrenia, 90%, according to the government, smoke cigarettes. And poor people smoke a lot at higher rates than more affluent Americans. So, for example,
so is that good or just an observation?
Well, it's an observation, and when you take the war on smoking, for example, Eric Garner in New York City was selling single cigarettes because poor people like to smoke, and because they can't afford a package of cigarettes, because in New York City the taxes on a package of cigarettes are $8.50. That's just the taxes.
But see, I wouldn't want to conflate Eric Garner's sales practices and the way in which he died.
Right.
I mean, they're factually connected.
Well, he was arrested for
selling the cigarettes.
For selling single cigarettes. You know, and it was, you know, what we might call collateral damage on the war on smoking. Collateral damage.
Again,
yes.
This is your show where
Right.
we're talking about the smoking section and
right.
celebrating a 100-year-old smoker. I don't. The Eric Garner, I wouldn't put those two things together. Although I think it is important to note that that's what he was doing, and that he ended up dead.
Yes.
From what, obviously, now, how many white men in America selling cigarettes,
Single cigarettes,
have
right.
ever been killed?
Right. Well, I mean, that's the point.
I mean,
no, that's certainly. No,
that's what I take from it. Not the smoking is good.
We all take what we all.
And how many people?
Right.
As in Ferguson.
Right.
And if you go into 7-Eleven and you happen to put Skittles in your pocket. Right. Who white person feels that that's equal to you should be dead?
Well, no.
I mean,
yes, no.
It boggles the mind. So where are the white people who went into 7-Eleven and put something in their pocket who are dead?
But I mean, you know, I'm talking about a lot of young black men smoke tobacco, and you know, a lot of poor people smoke tobacco.
But, you know,
wait, Ken, let me finish, please. This is my show.
Yes.
When I get to the city council hearings, it's your show.
I'm no longer on the city council, so we don't.
But I mean, you know, like for example,
I'm just a bridal guest today.
If God forbid, the city council had banned smoking in Cambridge Common, which the Cambridge Citizens for Smokers' Rights was able to persuade the city council that this was not good public policy. Mm-hmm. And even Mark McGovern, who had sponsored the bill, agreed with us. You know, the first people who would be thrown out of that public space would be poor people because they smoke. The affluent people don't smoke as much. So this is class linked, and it can't be ignored.
I'm not a sociologist of smoking, but I don't assume that there is a predominance of young black men who smoke. The reason I don't, for example, far more young white men drink alcohol and beer than young black men, believe it or not.
Oh, I can believe that, yes.
Huge percentage difference, because that's not normative young black male behavior. Now, if you bring in maybe marijuana, we could have a further discussion. But the smoking of cigarettes amongst young black men, I would have to see the statistics. Well, I do not believe that they are a predominant group in smoking of cigarettes.
Let's see if we have a call. Now, sometimes we get crank calls.
Okay, not on your show.
No, you're on the smoking section.
Hi, Steve.
Hello. Yeah, is this Paul Neff?
Yep, it's me. Wait a minute, let me turn down the sound. 1 second.
You're talking to former city councilor and former mayor Ken Reeves, who's been around and seen how smoking and smokers have been banished from public spaces one after another.
I think you guys are getting sidetracked from the point that. Well, I mean, I think there's a lot of problems with using the example of poor people smoking, with using that heavily, because smoking per se is widely regarded, or at least supposedly, right, as a sign of low character or low intelligence or low impulse control.
Well,
I mean, I can see where Mr. Reeves is coming from, because it could be considered part of the stereotype of, you know, people in the ghetto having low impulse control and being prone to vices.
You want to respond to that?
But what I'd like to know is, what is the prevalence of smoking among high-functioning, creative people of all races?
And what?
Say, like in the film business,
Right.
in independent films, in writing, in sociology, in professions like EMT and stuff like that.
Okay. We'll discuss that. Thank you for calling. Do you want Ken to respond or me to respond, or let's Ken? Do you have any any feeling on that?
Actually, yeah, I think I'm going to hang up and let you guys take it from here.
All right. Thank you.
I wouldn't say I have the information to respond to any of that, except that I do believe that probably socioeconomics show up across all races in smoking.
You mean, yes, in regards to what? How do you mean?
That many poor people, I can think if I went to Chinatown, I would expect to see a lot of older men who smoke.
And they got old even though they smoked? Or they started smoking in old age? But you're not
Well,
supposed to
I don't know how they got old, but they sit around and they seem to be smoking. So I would want to study a lot more before I reach conclusions, but I can think of within socioeconomic groups, the people who came to some hearings about our housing authority and whether or not they would have to smoke were often older white people, actually.
Right.
Who, in fact, I can think of a particular lady who had a husband in her 70s, and she says, well, what am I supposed to do with my husband?
And we were very happy that the city council did speak to the did write a letter to Cambridge Housing Authority asking for a delayed implementation so that the city council could, I think that's what you did, if I remember.
No, during my period, I was exiting the council when the matter came up, and I didn't get to have an opinion because I wasn't there when it was discussed. I did want to tell you this. I was going to say 2 words about why I don't smoke.
Right.
And it was when I became mayor in 1995, the then superintendent, Mary Lou McGrath, and we would go to various schools to visit.
Yes.
And at that time, 3rd graders were very attuned to this issue of, are you going to sign a pledge that you'll never smoke again?
Oh, my
God.
God.
Oh, you will never smoke in your life.
So basically, anti-smoking movement was using teenagers, these kids, as pawns,
well, I think
as pawns, yes. I think that's child abuse. I think it's almost child abuse.
I think the Robert Wood Johnson Foundation funded
naturally
portals to get out the message that smoking is bad for you and
Ken,
your
and
health.
you took the pledge then?
Well, I said to the superintendent, I said, we're supposed to be examples, and both you and I are smokers. And so I think we have to get in the mirror here and decide, what's up. So in my case, I decided that I would do everything I could to try to quit.
Right.
And I was very lucky in doing that. But the inspiration was I didn't want to hypocritically go to these classrooms and say, well, no.
Why not? You could have said I enjoyed smoking, and it's none of your business if I smoke or not. And I'm an American, an adult American.
I'm more concerned about the health profile and the health care establishment.
And that's a pretty heavy-duty establishment, especially when you're talking about the Robert Wood Johnson
Foundation. Stay out of
Foundation.
it is a good thing. So
you don't want the Robert Wood Johnson Foundation on your back. That's for sure.
I wouldn't say that. I think they after smoking, and they did fund a lot of anti-smoking. They have gone now to childhood obesity.
Right.
So I don't think that's bad.
Ken, when you quit smoking, you mentioned in city council that you gained a lot of weight. Did you look pretty decent these days? I think you look good.
I gained a lot of weight, and much of that weight is still here.
Oh,
but I'm glad to be healthier.
Okay, let me ask you a question. You know our friend Harold Washington, of course.
Former mayor of Chicago. Yes.
Now, he gained so much weight that, a lot of people think, in fact, his giving up smoking was the cause of his heart attack.
Could well be. I mean,
he gained like a huge amount of weight.
Smoking is a wonderful appetite suppressor.
Right.
And once you quit smoking, everything begins to taste so wonderful.
Oh, come on.
And it's true. It's true. And you begin to be free. You get a sense of smell back that is much
Okay, let me ask you a
improved.
question.
Taste.
Do you ever miss smoking?
No,
Oh,
no,
come on.
never.
Not with your morning
Do
coffee?
would I miss
But you don't
standing
wake up in
outside the
morning.
door of
No,
a
but that's
building
because-
trying to smoke in the
Right.
in the
That's because
cold
it's-
weather?
that's because
No,
of
I would never miss
restrictions.
that.
It's not because of tobacco
the
itself.
social approbation of smokers, and I will just give you that, is becomes sad.
Okay.
I remember